Buddham sharanam gacchami.
Buddham sharanam gacchami.
Buddham sharanam gacchami. Dhammam sharanam gacchami.
Dhammam sharanam gacchami.
Dhammam sharanam gacchami. Sangham sharanam gacchami.
Sangham sharanam gacchami.
Sangham sharanam gacchami. Buddham sharanam gacchami. Dhammam sharanam gacchami. Sangham sharanam gacchami.
Buddham sharanam gacchami. Dhammam sharanam gacchami. Sangham sharanam gacchami. Buddham sharanam gacchami. Dhammam sharanam gacchami. Sangham sharanam gacchami.
Adalame Juvenji, Shamji Pemala Dutin, Pungakule Dozem, Domayum La Chance, Lo, Tari Dureso. Dare to Dare Dureso, 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 Dare to Dare Dureso. Dare to Dare Dureso, Dare to Dare Dureso, Dare to Dare Dureso, Dare Dureso, Dare to Dare Dureso. Dare to Dare Dureso, Dare to Dare Dureso, Dare to Dare Dureso, Dare to Dare Dureso, Dare to Dare Dureso. Dare to Dare Dureso, 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 Dare to Dare Duresova, 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 Dare to Dare Duresova. Dare to Dare Duresova, 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 Dare to Dare Duresova. Dare to Dare Duresova, 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 Dare to Dare Dare to Dare Duresova, Dare to Dare Duresova, Dare to Dare Duresova, Dare to Dare Duresova, Dare to Dare Dare to Dare Duresova, Dare to Dare Duresova, Gevadi, Nurdo, Pamadoma, Dujunen, Rova, Chigamale, He Salang, Barasho. Oh, yeah. So, welcome everybody. I'm using my mobile phone, so I hope it will remain static. So to start with, as usual, we need to remind ourselves this wonderful opportunity that we have today as a human being, which is really not easy to get. One of the questions that people normally ask is, although people know, or at least they have an inkling of idea that we should be doing all these good practices and so forth, but most of us are unable to do that. So what is the problem? What is the reason? In fact, one person just today asked me this question. so now the reason is, we are ordinary human beings who have not eliminated the negative emotions, and the improper process of the mind engaging into the object is there. And the objects towards which we cultivate negative emotions, they are always present. So therefore, all the causes and conditions for developing negative emotions is present. So therefore, we become susceptible to the development of negative emotions. That's one way of explaining from the Buddhist viewpoint. Then from the scientific point of view, which of course do not talk about habituation of many lives, but scientifically, when we trace our origin, it goes back to the animal realm. So we have inherited that animal instinct of anger, of competitiveness, of hatred and bullying each other. That's all the animals do, we see all the time. So therefore, in our society also, we see that animal behavior, popping up again and again. So that's why, we have this problem. And the third possible answer is that we also, as human beings or as ordinary sentient beings, we have this habit of paying attention only to what you can see, what you can touch, what you can hear, and not the invisible energies and things like that. So can you hear the sound of the rain? Not so much right now?
Not so much right now.
Okay, hopefully. So today, many things are coming together. It has started raining now. So I live under a tint room, So anyway, so therefore, unless we make a kind of concerted effort to change our mind, to recognize our mind, the potentials of the mind, and make concerted effort to get habituated with the positive ways of things, it's not going to come so easily and so easily or so readily. So therefore, it is important to make special attention. Number one, to know the capacity of the mind, that the mind is the one that controls everything. And the second, we need to make effort. We need to be mindful and alert and aware all the time and make effort. That is the only way we can change our mind. So unless we have a die-hard habit, a habit, old die-hard habit that in which we are used for I don't know how many lives. So how are you going to cure it in one day, short-lived attempt? Just like a person suffering from a long chronic disease, you can't hope to heal that person with one dose of medicine or one tablet of medicine, right? So therefore, it is important to recognize this fact and make concerted effort. Unless we develop some kind of awareness and make concerted effort, then the distractions are so overwhelming, be it the people surrounding us, or be it the objects surrounding us, whatever. There's so much distraction. We will, like small innocent children, we will be easily distracted in all these directions. So therefore, we need to make effort. So therefore, today's teaching starts with the verse which talks about more or less what I've been saying, that need to be cautious. That need to be cautious. We need to be cautious means to to be fully cognizant of the positive emotions to develop and the negative emotions to discard. So this verse says that to be cautious or to be heedful is, I mean, many people have used different words, but the words I prefer is to be cautious or to be heedful. To be heedful is source of nectar, and heedlessness or without caution is the source of death. This is what the Buddha taught. Therefore, Nagarjuna instructs the king that in order to increase your virtuous practices, you should always be cautious. I mean, look at this word. He uses the word always, always be cautious. Because human beings, unlike birds or animals, especially the smaller animals, human beings, we have overconfidence with our intelligence. So we are normally, unfortunately, not very cautious. In the case of the birds, they are very cautious, not for Dharma practice, but just to save their life from the attacks which can come from any direction. So they're always watchful, moving their tails, moving their heads, very, very cautious. So we are sleeping. So therefore, great teachers like Shantideva here to repeatedly tell, you fool, this is not the time to sleep. You will remember that. There is a line there like that in his Bodhisattva way of life. So therefore, we need to, in order to meditate on the virtuous practices and in order to guard your mind from contaminated actions, which means negative emotions, it is important to be cautious, to be heedful, in which direction you are going, what words you are able to use, what kind of subs are coming in your mind, with what kind of people you are associating. You need to be really watchful. If you want to save yourself from falling into a negative state of existence, you need to be very watchful. Very watchful. Right? So that's what he's saying. So it is through this watchfulness or heedfulness that you will reach the source of nectar, which basically means nirvana. Nirvana, the deathless state. Nirvana is also referred as the deathless state. You will reach to that deathless state. Okay. Contrary to that, if you remain heedless, then you will be born in the cycle of existence. You will be born in the samsara, and you will have to experience the unceasing suffering again and again, which we are experiencing right now. So he's basically challenging us by saying, are you continue in the same way as you've been doing, or you need to, you want a little bit better life, happier life, if possible, the deathless state of nirvana. So he's basically saying the choice is yours. So if you want to achieve nirvana or liberation from samsara, liberation from suffering, then you need to be very careful, very, very heedful, right? Because we are slaves to the five sensual objects. The five sensual objects are basically pulling you into all directions. The form is saying, see me, I'm so handsome, so beautiful. The sound is saying, I'm so pleasant to hear, listen to my song, listen to my music, Especially when you are young, you spend so much time entertaining, so-called entertaining yourself with this, engagement with the sensual objects. Then the more and more you grow, you do not see much benefit of getting yourself distracted to all these sensual objects, like seeing a poem or listening to music or things like that. And especially if you get addicted to all these things, you're not going to find your way. Okay. So therefore, therefore, he's telling the king, therefore, you king, now from henceforth, you should cultivate those virtuous practices which you have not cultivated, and abandon those negative deeds which you have cultivated. In other words, in terms of the virtuous practices which you have not cultivated, cultivate it. If you have cultivated, further increase it, strengthen it. In the negative case of negative emotions you have not cultivated, Wonderful. Don't cultivate. If you cultivate it, then remove them, eradicate them. For a practitioner, our constant enemy, unwavering enemy, is the negative emotions. So being cautious means to see whether these negative emotions are invading your mind or not. If they are invading, then you cannot be happy. You cannot stay in peace. For example, can you be in peace and happiness if you develop strong anger, strong jealousy on experience, right? So therefore, it is important to understand in that way. Now, having given such an instruction, if you ask a question by saying that Nagarjuna, if you really want to help me, let us say the king is like asking question. So my friend Nagarjuna, if you had really wanted to help me, then why you have not taught this right in the beginning, right in the beginning? Because if you had taught this to me right in the beginning, I could have avoided many of these wrongdoings that I have done. Now I have already, committed many negative things. So what should I do? So this is answered in the next. Even if you had been careless or heedless in the past, but with knowledge, with recognition, later on you change your attitude, become more heedful and more cautious, and then you will be freed, just like a bright moon freed from the shrouding of the cloud, and you can shine forth, without any uh, covering from the moon. Then having taught this, then the king asked a question. This seems very encouraging. Can you give me some concrete examples of people who had been heedless and committed many negative deeds, and then later on they change their mind, and then they become better, they achieve higher spiritual. Yes, I'll give you a few examples. So the first example that he had given is Nanda. Nanda. Nanda was one of the youth of the Shakya dynasty, and in fact, something like younger brother of the Buddha. Okay, so in the case of this youth, the Nanda, he was a very lustful person, very lustful person, and his lust was so strong that he was unable to remain separate from his wife even for a moment. He wants to just cling and hang on with his wife, with his spouse. But at Buddha's urging, repeated urging, he gradually became ordained. He became a monk. Even after having, become a monk, day and night, the thought of his wife came. You see. So unless you are able to change your mind, changing the cloth is not a big deal. It's clearly said here. And therefore, even the sixth Dalai Lama, based on his experience, or maybe to give a teaching, he was also a womanizer. So in his romantic poem, although he was staying in the Portala Palace, but his mind was always going to the women. And then based on his own experience, he said, the way that my mind is going to the women, in the same way, if my mind goes to the Dharma, there is no question about getting enlightenment in one lifetime. I mean, this is, we categorize this in kind of romantic poem, but many people say what the sixth Dalai Lama composed is actually a very profound tantric teachings. So whatever be the case, it's very easy to understand what he is saying makes complete sense, because ordinarily the way sometimes we say, oh, nirvana is so difficult to actualize, enlightenment, oh, so difficult to achieve. Yes, it is true. It may be difficult, but it's not impossible. And then the more important thing is, how are you, or how are we, how can we say that is difficult, having not made hardly any attempt, you see? So therefore, this is Dalai Lama saying that if you make attempt, like my mind is making attempt to the women, day and night, if you think about bodhicitta, for example, instead of the women or instead of the men, day and night, I mean, now own experience, all of us, monk or women or lay person, what is beautiful object, that beautiful object, it happens. So sometimes out of curiosity, people ask the monks, what is your feeling when you see a woman? Do you develop some desire, some attachment, some liking? Some people even ask this question to me long time back. Then sometimes we try to avoid the, question, answering as if our mind is not going there. But the reality is, we are all, ordinary human beings. So it's really like asking, when you see the flower, do you like the flower? Do you love the flower? Of course, this is natural thing, you develop some kind of anything that fancies your mind, you develop whether you call it attachment, whether you call it love, it arises spontaneously. One, because we have, so that is there. But then the difference is a flower and loving a flower. If you like a flower, you might plug it. If you love a flower, you will water it. Something like this. So in Buddhism, we are talking about not just ordinary attachment and love, but unconditional love. If something like that is there, then everybody, looks attractive to you. And it should be like that, because beauty lies in the beholder of the eye, as we say. You see? So just seeing somebody as handsome, beautiful, nice, due to his or her face, for especially like men, women attraction, why we have this so much attraction, men to women, women to men. I was reading due to hormone flow, different, there are dopamine, there's so many, hormones are there, So because of these different hormones, and then due to different reasons, the look of the face and look of the body, and then the smell of the, that object, whatever, there's so many different causes or similarity of food that people eat, so many, due to so many reasons, you develop attraction to different things, right? So what we need to do here is not to allow yourself get obsessed with these objects, whether you call it attachment or whatever you call it. You see beautiful things as beautiful, good things as, if you see some rich people, appreciate it. But beyond that, if you get obsessed with those objects and then strongly like it, strongly dislike it, repel it, or obsessed with it, there's the problem. There is how attachment and hatred arises, right? So therefore, so in the case of this the first example, Nanda, who was a relative of the Buddha, he has this strong attachment and lust to his wife. Uh, then it is said that the Buddha had to teach him a very strong lesson. So through miraculous power, the Buddha had taken to the hell realm, where sentient beings are burnt alive, or whatever horrible things. Then through that he developed very strong fear, and then based on this fear, when he was asked to meditate on the spiritual paths, then his meditation was so one-pointed and so intense that it is said he achieved the path, the arhat, the one who has destroyed negative emotions. He was able to achieve that path. But then in our case, one very convincing, all of us will not be able to go to hell. Buddha is not here to take us all to the hell. But if you have the right way of seeing things, then more or less so many types of hells are around us. If you look at some of these different animals, poor people, hungry, sick, very, very, very pitiable situation, difficult situation, right? Right? So when you see all this, And then in the case of, women attracted to men, men attracted to the women, see the stuff by which man is made, stuff by which the women is made, You see all the limitations, shortcomings, the ugly side of so many things, immortal, going to die, and so many things, right? Therefore, Shantideva said, how come an impermanent person develops attachment to another impermanent person? Now, if that is not so clear, then, for example, if you will you develop attachment to something that is going to normally for the sake of conviction, I normally give the example of say a very old man or women, okay, lying in front of you, let us say 95-year-old man or women, age-wise very old, then physically, let us say, extremely sick, with wounds all over the body, pus oozing out, blood oozing out. If there is such an old, sick, dying person in front of you, will you develop attachment? I don't think so. I don't think so. There will be, unless somebody is crazy, nobody would come forward and say, I would like to marry this old man, dying old man, sick old man, or dying and sick old women. Nobody would say that. Attachment will not come. Instead of a man or woman or whatever object, there's no such long-lasting suffering in the future. So for all this, you need to really reflect properly and think carefully. Then that will lessen your attachment. And now here, I'm not saying don't marry or anything like that. What I'm saying is marriage or any connection based on what useful. So make a connection. You have to make connection, right? And that connection must be healthy connection, without craving, without grasping, or at least less grasping, less craving. That can be done. That can be. So there's a big difference between attachment and loving kindness. Attachment comes by saying, this belongs to me. This is my wife, my husband, my car, my house. Loving kindness doesn't say that. Loving kindness says, I love this person. I want to take care of this person because this person also, like me, want happiness, do not want suffering. It's not saying because of me, I have to love this. No, because of the similarity of the situation of this person and myself, just as I take care of myself, I have to take care of these people also. So when you really see, the more you're able to see the reality, the more that will help you lessen your attachment. Similarly, let's come back to the same example of the old man or women. When you see such an old man and woman sick and dying, you will not develop hatred or right? When you see such a person lying there in a helpless situation, nobody would say, oh, let us go and give a kick to this person or beat this person, right? Instead, again, there is more likelihood of showing, love and affection and extending some help because you're able to see the actual situation of that person. This is a very crucial point that you need to reflect. The more, that's why in Buddhism, the more it will help you develop positive emotions and it will help removing the negative emotions. That's the reason in Buddhism there's so much talk about understanding the reality, the many facets of reality, be it impermanence, be it suffering, be it interdependent origination, be it shunyata, whatever. These are all different levels and facets of truth and reality. The more you're able to see the reality, especially in a more penetrative, precise way, The more you're able to see that, the more you will see the fragility of everybody. The more you will see the connection, the fragile connection, right? So that will help you develop loving kindness sense. Compassion makes sense. Non-violence makes sense. When you don't have that understanding, then you go to the stupid, the wrong way, and then you resort to arms to kill other people. Right? Now look at the ludicrosity of here. Look at the joke here. You see, the person itself is very fragile, imminent to die today, tomorrow, anytime. That's the reality of everybody. Human beings, especially, you know, animals, sentient beings in general, especially human beings. This is the state. But on the other hand, we have the so-called the leaders and other people who are stockpiling arms and ammunitions, nuclear weapons to destroy this already dying people, right? I mean, it's stupid. And therefore, great teachers like Shanti Deva says, you don't have to kill people. They will die. So killing people is really like killing a dead body. So we need to develop this kind of sense within us. So however powerful, mighty you think you are, it's only a question of few years at the most. You're all going to, by the law of nature, you're all going to collapse and crumble, especially if you choose the wrong path. You see? And people don't understand this. People don't understand this. They don't hesitate in doing all kind of stupid things to destroy and kill and harm other people, right? So therefore, if you understand the real nature of everything, then that will help you reduce your attachment, anger, jealousy, and so forth. Angulimala, the person who had met a wrong teacher, and that the wrong teacher advised him to kill 1,000 people. And after having killed, one person, he was instructed to chop the finger of that person and then make a, rosary ring of fingers to find out how many he has killed and wear it on his neck. So that is the story in India. So 999 people, he was looking for the last person. And on that day, it is said that Buddha intentionally made himself manifest in front of that person. So when he was, the Angulimala was looking for the last person, and then Buddha intentionally, because he realized that this is the time to change this person. So Buddha made himself manifest in front of him, walking slowly nearby. Then Angulimala chased him with his very frightful and ugly looking body and with a sword in his hand. And he started running after Buddha. And Buddha was walking slowly. Somehow he was not able to catch the Buddha, the story says. And then finally Angulimala, the murderer, he shouted by saying, don't you realize who is chasing you? I am the dreadful murderer called Angulimala. So stop. Then the Buddha stopped and looked back and he said, it is not me who is not stopping, it is you who is not stopping. See, this is a great, at least from my point of view, this is a great message to the modern people. We are not stopping. It is by running and running, we all get tired, you see. So I jokingly, but I have a message, I tell the modern people as Angulimalas. Of course, not running to kill people, but in some cases, yes, that is also true. In some cases, running for other things, but we are running until we get exhausted. And we have no idea where we are running.
So the Buddha said, come. And Angulimala was surprised and shocked. How come that there is one person who is not at all scared of death and not at all scared of a murderer, and later on he became a great practitioner. So there's the second example. The third example is Ajat Shatru. Shatru was actually the son of the king Bimbisara. Bimbisara was a king at the time of the Buddha. He was a powerful king, and through control, through marriages and so forth, he conquered many places in India. And then later on, he also entrusted one small kingdom to Ajatashatru, his son, to look after. But Ajatashatru became very, very kind of greedy. And then especially at the advice of Devadatta, who was always jealous of the Buddha. And then Bimbisara also became a Buddhist, and he was constantly receiving teachings from the Buddha. So this Devadatta, he became very jealous, and Devadatta was also a relative of Buddha. So you can see. So, and then Devadatta give the wrong advice to Ajatashatru that he's friend of Buddha, unless you adopt some tactic to banish this king, he will be there. Your father will be there forever to rule after everything, and you won't get much chance. So listening to such bad advice, he captured the throne of him. And some people say he committed suicide in the prison, whatever. And then after that, interestingly, this Ajatashatru was in turn killed by his own son called Ujjain. Then Ujjain became king. He was also killed by his own. There's a very interesting story, very interesting story. Anyway, but this teaching, even Ajatashatru. So because of that, later on, he realized his, mistake of having killed his father. And then he regretted. And the interesting thing is, when he developed a very strong sense of regret, then he asked, some of his friends, I committed this patricide, killing my father. So how can I purify? He was really, he sunk into depression. Then his friend suggested that you should go and ask this advice from the Buddha. And when he went to seek the advice from the Buddha said, oh, not to worry. Father and mother are to be killed. Father and mother are to be killed. So because he was trusting Buddha, having heard this from the Buddha, he thought, okay, it's okay. So he came back to his senses. He came out of his depression. And when he came out of his depression, then the Buddha said, look, come to me. I will explain this a little more. Then the Buddha said, when I said it's okay to kill the father and mother, I'm not talking about the physical father and mother. I'm talking about ignorance and the negative karma, which are like father and mother producing all other heaps of negative emotions. So they must be killed. Then he started giving the genuine teaching. And through that way, he also became a good practitioner. So these are interesting tactics. And then there is another one, Udayana. So Udayana was also a very lustful person, and he used to go and sleep with other women. And his mother repeatedly, tried to stop him, and because of this, he got so annoyed that he also killed his mother, matricides. And then later on, he was also kicked out from the monastery. Somehow he changed his attitude, and he started constructing temples and also opened a monastery and let other monks come and showed them the true path of practice, and he also got completely transformed. So these are examples of how you can purify your negative emotions even if you have committed one. So it looks like in Buddhism we don't believe in permanent hell. Okay, You might, because in many lives you committed so many deeds, positive as well as negative. So depending upon the intensity of these karmas, they give fruit and things like that. Okay, so there is always an opportunity to rectify and set right. This is next verse is talking about practicing patience. Especially, this teaching is also especially to the lay people, the householders, because when you lead a family life, the life of a householder, and then many unwanted things befall on you. Because if you are just one person, an ordinary person, undesirable things befall on you, and because of that, you constantly get upset and get angry. So the best way to stop those anger is to reflect on the benefit and the qualities of practice of patience. And this question is also asked to me by someone today who came to my office today. Real life, it's very difficult for us. What should we do? So I told him that, yes, there are many things which is difficult, but difficult does not mean you can't do it. And in fact, if there is other better, opportunity, other better choice, then go for that. But there's no other better solution. There's no other better path. So therefore, you have to do it. If you want more reliable peace and happiness and harmony in your home and family and so forth, then you need to do that. Okay, because there's no other alternative. So therefore, this verse says that there is no austerity like patience. Austerity, there are many kind of austerity or hardships people undergo in the name of doing particular religious practice. Some people starve themselves. Some people go naked. Some people even go to the extent, on top of your crazy mind, if you meet wrong teachers, then they'll ask you to do so only kind of self-inflicted, meaningless self-inflicted problems, which is not going to solve the problem. Because when we talk about transforming yourself, it has to do with torturing the body. Yes, you need to undergo some kind of effort and some hardship, but not to the extent. That's why Buddha suggested to avoid the two extremes: the extreme of leading a very luxurious life and the extreme of self-mortification. Based on his own spiritual practice, he found that both of these are two extremes. So in one's style of life, one's practice, one's view and philosophy, it always has to be the middle way. His Holiness the Dalai Lama is suggesting the middle way approach to solve the problem between the Chinese and the Tibetans. And then based on my own experience, I always found that this middle way approach is really the best approach, and 100% defeat on others, you see. So it's through dialogue, right? And create a kind of win-win situation, right? So therefore, even in a day, almost every day you get angry probably, at least for sometimes, upset, anger and things like that. So then
Hello, everyone. I'm so sorry for the trouble, but we are actually very, very grateful that Kishla tried, despite all the difficulties, teach us. So I just spoke with him and he said it's really hopeless right now with the internet. So we will continue next week. It's probably the same verses again. So sending out big thanks to Geshe for trying his best, really. And sending out big thanks to you all for being so patient and turning off your videos. and listening so very carefully with extra heatfulness today. So thank you so much.